Howdy. Tonight I'd like to talk about three things: thinking, imagining, and daydreaming. Now, granted, they're all somewhat related to if you wanted to call it the mind, being mindful in reality. But they're also all related to the secret of the power of positive thinking. Now, you may have heard the power of positive thinking. If you just imagine things and concentrate on what you want, then it will somehow magically appear as reality in your life. And I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. But I'd also like to express how you can manifest those things in your life. Also, maybe give you a practical exercise on how to exercise your imagination and the benefits that you can realize when you do exercise your imagination. What does that mean for you? And, well, let's talk about it. Have some fun. From the great American Southwest, deep in the heart of the Texas Hill Country near the mystical land of the Enchanted Rock, welcome to my little corner of the internet. I'm J.W. Spencer, and this is my Vision Quest. Okay, so we're talking about thinking and imagining and daydreaming. Now, here I am in my studio. This is, well, frankly, it's my home office. It's where I work during the pandemic. That's where I am. I'm also making videos, practice my musical instruments, guitar, accordion, piano, working on the piano. I have to practice my piano 40 hours a week. 40 hours a day, 8 days a week. That's what they said. 40 hours a day, 8 days a week. Gotcha. Seriously. Anyhow, thinking, imagining, daydreaming. Now, in the studio, I want you to differentiate how are these things different in your mind. A way to conceptualize them. In the studio, I have my art supplies. I have an easel, a canvas is on my easel. I have a palette, a glass palette sits on my table. I put paint on my palette, and I have brushes. Those are tools. That's like the knowledge. The studio is the knowledge of your mind, right? That's what you think with. That's the tools that you have available to you to do things in your mind, to think about. Imagination is when you use your mind, those tools, and in your mind you pick up the brush. You dip your brush in the paint, and then you apply it to your canvas, and you start creating a work of art. Where does music come from? Where does a story come from when someone writes prose? Where does painting come from? The creation of it. It is a product of your mind, a creation of your imagination using the tools that you have available to you, your experience. You can teach yourself how to draw. And I think the Dog of Flanders is a really good movie. I think the artist there said, you can teach any fool how to draw. Okay? But to be an artist requires a passion upon the artist, right? You have to love it. Same thing with music. You have to love it. Same thing with writing. You have to love it. But you create it. Out of that love comes creation. Now, I want to profit here and say that you can create something good, or you can create something other than good. And I'm going to use those terms, okay? Good or other than good. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean that, gee, that's a beautiful painting, or gee, that's a crappy painting. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, when we create something, we use our imagination and our thinking skills, and we think about what we're creating, it can be good morally, or it can be an immoral good, not good, right? Meaning, I'm not talking about religiosity either. Don't confuse morality with religion. It's not the same. Any act that impacts another human being is a moral act. It can be a moral act or it can be an immoral act, right? Immoral is not good. Moral is good. Let's say there's a doctor, all right? And she's a heart surgeon. And our doctor, that's what she does. She performs heart surgeries. And the surgeries that she has undertaken have been typically 6, 7, 8 hours long surgeries. The patient's on the table for that long. Chest is split open, take a scalpel down it, open it up with cleavers, and they get in there and do stuff. After she's done, she closes the patient up and sews him up and puts him in a hospital room for about a week before sending them home to recover at home for another 2 months before they can go back to work or go play golf or whatever it is they do before they preach in church. Right? She does good work. But our doctor, our friend, the doctor, has an idea. She knows she has these tools, the knowledge that she has as a physician that she's gained from experience in her mind of her studio. Her studio is the scalpel and the suture and all these sponges and stuff. What she does, the tools of the trade. She uses her imagination and she comes up with a better way to perform this corrective surgery that she does all the time. She's using these little remote probes that have cameras on them. She makes like 3 holes in a person's diaphragm and inserts these probes, and she can do it while watching a TV monitor and, insert, do this, do that. I'm not an MD. I'm do this and do that, do hickeys and doodads. She's doing her doodads with her stuff. Her surgery now takes an hour at most, maybe an hour and a half prep time from the patient's point of view. When she's done, patient doesn't have a big old scar. They have 3 pokey holes. She puts them in a hospital room, observe them for a day or maybe 2, but at least a day, an observation to make sure there's no perforations or anything. And she sends them home. And our patient the next day goes out and plays golf. That is a good thing. That is a moral thing that she has done. She has created something good. It's happy for the patient. I mean, the patient, it's less invasive. The wife's happy. The hospital's happy. They get to see more patients. That patient is not in the hospital for a week taking up space. They can see more patients. The doctor, she can do 2 or 3 of these in a day instead of 1, maybe 2. She can do 4, maybe 5. She's happy. She's helping a lot more people. Good thing. I don't really have to talk about bad thing, but something is not good. It would be something else. Something that causes pain. Something that is done creatively that hurts people. That doesn't help them. That is done in a selfish mode, not in a loving mode. That is something not good. That is an immoral act, right? Now, let's get beyond that and let's talk about daydreaming. Now, daydreaming is a flight of fancy, all right? Did Gene Roddenberry use daydreaming techniques when he created Star Trek? Yeah, he did. But he used daydreaming on walks, just like Steve Jobs did. How did Steve Jobs come up with an iPhone? The idea of a compact, portable phone with a smart screen on it that you can install applications on Did he even envision what it has become in the daily life of people around the world? He walked, and that's how he thought. He daydreamed about the possibilities, about things that would be helpful for other people. How would you make something helpful like that? He had knowledge in his brain, but his daydreaming was more or less brainstorming, much like a writer does when they're writing a story. The thing is, a daydream is non productive. You cannot create something from a daydream other than formulate, brainstorm ideas. And then you take those ideas and you stick them in your shop. And then your imagination goes to work on those ideas because your shop has all the tools for the imagination to refine your brainstorming ideas and to make something productive, something good, something tangible, something that exists in the real world. That requires you to do something, to create. The paint will not go from the palette to the canvas without your taking a brush and applying it. The light and the shadow and the colors, the blend. That doesn't happen just by thinking about it. It takes action. I hope I get that across. But that is basically the secret, the power of positive thinking. It's more than just concentration on something that you desire in life. I want to win the lottery. I wish I were rich. Well, that's not going to happen if all you do is sit on the beach and watch the sunset. It might happen. You stand up, walk down the beach, go to the pier, walk out to the end of the pier, start taking photos, sell those photos, and people will buy them. If you build it, they will come. The Field of Dreams. Ever watched that movie with Kevin Costner? Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. Watch that baseball game. Greatest baseball game ever played this year. I'm sorry. You don't like baseball, you're not my friend. All right? Anyhow, now I want to move down the field a little bit or around the bases. We're going from first to second. All right? Second base, I want to talk about exercising your imagination. Now, exercising your imagination, a practical exercise of your imagination. I should probably break this up into 3 videos, but I'm going to do this all in one video. Exercising your imagination, and how is that related to thinking and imagining and daydreaming, right? Exercising your imagination. Now, I like to think of imagination is the interpreter of your daydreams to the wood shop, to the shop of stuff in your mind, all right? That's your imagination. And you need to exercise your imagination because it needs to comprehend, it needs to be strong. You need a good handle on what you're doing. You need to have insight and wisdom, perspective. All right? How do we do that? How do we develop those things? Exercise. Let's think of something. Picture in your mind, if you will, an aircraft carrier. I have in my mind, like Carl Vinson or the USS America, the USS Nimitz. I was on the Enterprise once, and I was on the America once, and I was on Carl Vinson once. I was also on, there's a retired carrier down in Corpus Christi, Texas, in the Bay. It's all rusted hulk these days, or at least it was the last time I was on it. But think of an aircraft carrier at sea. I mean, you probably have a picture in your mind, but here's a picture that you can look at to get this centered in your mind. What is an aircraft carrier? What's its role? What's its job? Is it a moral thing? Good question. Its principal job is a warship. I like to call it a peace ship. It promotes peace. I'm a firm believer, that the more you sweat in peacetime, the less you will bleed in wartime. That's the truth. So, what is the purpose of an aircraft carrier? An aircraft carrier's purpose is to keep the peace, and if necessary, to prosecute war, to win, but not to do so just because. War is an ugly thing. Yes, it is an immoral thing to kill someone in war, unless it is to save someone else. You hear someone screaming on the street, a lady's getting raped in the dark, and you hear her screaming for help, help me, help me, help me. You can walk on by and pay no attention to it. Or you can intervene, save her life, save her from the trauma of being a victim of rape by an aggressive perpetrator who is evil. You stop it. You do what needs to be done. Yeah, you call the police and let the police be the police. But if the threat is imminent, it's right now, you do what needs to be done. You stop it. That's the way I look at that. An aircraft carrier's purpose in life is to prosecute war, to stand ready to do things that need to be done, should they be asked. That's why we sweat in peace. Airplanes, F-18s, E-2Cs, EA-6Bs, Grumman aircraft. I love EA-6B because it's based on the A-6C Intruder, which is my favorite aircraft. Anyhow, think about the aircraft carrier. There's 5,000 people on board. I mean, they do everything on an aircraft carrier. You're out at sea for 6 months. You have to poop, you have to pee, you have to take showers, you have to live with 5,000 people. And now that means women and men. It's a co-ed ship now. I think the Ford class even got rid of urinals. There's no more head on the Ford class aircraft carrier because there are so many women. They have co-ed, bathrooms basically. Or the bathrooms can be configured. Let me put it this way. It's not co-ed. It's not like men and women are going to the same bathroom, but you might partition it a different way, meaning it depends on the ship configuration and what the master chief wants and what the commanding officer wants and what the squadron wants. It kind of depends. But they configure it, and how many women are on board versus, the configure, are there more women this cruise than the last one? You might expand the space to have more toilets available for women to use. You got to feed all these people every day. You got breakfast, lunch, and dinner plus mid-rations, midnight rations. You work the mid-crew, 11 p.m. at night until 8 in the morning. That was my job. You had to eat at midnight. Scrambled eggs, SOS. Some people caught shit on a shingle. Other people caught same old shit. It's a sailor term, same old shit, because back in turn of the century on the old Navy ships, you were out to sea, you probably didn't have supply. You didn't have fresh food. So what did they use? They used dried beef. And then they made gravy. And they used fat. They didn't use butter. I mean, fat as in lard, which kept for a long time if you kept it cool, relatively. So they made gravy with chipped beef and toast. So they made bread, sliced the bread, put chipped beef and gravy on toast. Same old shit, because they didn't have anything else. They couldn't carry, they didn't have lobster and steak and pizzas and, scrambled eggs every day. And the scrambled eggs, granted, even on today's carrier in circumstances, I'm going to say that, it's more like add water and mix it. cook it on a stovetop, cooktop. Let's think about this reverse. So we have our carrier in the middle of the sea. We're going to go backwards in time. Let's take the carrier back to when it was being built, back in the shipyard, into the dry dock. Now, you ever think about how they launch an aircraft carrier? It's in a dry dock. They fill it with water and they push it out. They don't do what a lot of people think, where you're going to crack the front of the ship with a champagne bottle and it's going to splash in the ocean. They may have done that with freighters and other smaller ships. Aircraft carrier not going to do that. They have a dry dock. They build a ship in it. They raise the water. When they're done, they push it out. That's all it takes. So let's put it in the dry dock. Let's take the water out of the dry dock. That aircraft carrier is now sitting on blocks, supported all the way from the stern to the front to the bow of the ship, on the keel. She's sturdy and solid, standing on her own, dry. Let's take the paint off. Let's see the rusty hull and the sections of steel as they were welded into place. The modules as they were dropped. I mean, you think of the conning tower. The conning tower was put into place by a big crane. The bow was put into place by a big crane. The stern by a big crane, just dropped into place as a module. And they had like 300 welders go to town, start welding, piecing it together. All the pipes, all the plumbing, all the electricity, all the electric wire. I forget how much electric wire a carrier has, but it's quite a bit. The nuclear reactors are in the bow of the ship where the snipes live. They call them snipes. I guess you call them black shoes. Whatever. But think about that. In your mind, you're taking all of that apart. Take off the bow, take off the stern, take off the conning tower, take off the flight deck where the airplanes sit, take off the first 4 levels. Those are the levels above the hangar deck. Those are where working spaces for the squadrons. That's the ready rooms. That's the avionics shop, radio shop, a whole bunch of different avionics stuff. And you got to support all the different aircraft on board the ship. Take all of that away. You're left with a hangar deck. Below the hangar deck, well, you got a few more levels below. The inner hull, the outer hull, the ballast. You got all the plumbing and the piping on the bottom of the ship. The fuel tanks for the aircraft. The turbines. It still has to generate steam. It's got to cook with stuff. They have steam up in the galley where they're cooking food. They got to keep all those plates hot. All right, take all that away. Pretty soon, we're not left with anything in the dry dock. You have a module, one last module, and we lift it up with a crane and we take it inside of a building. And then we take that apart. Take the sides, the hull, the pieces of hull off the sides of it. Just take it apart in your mind. Pretty soon you don't have anything physical inside that resembles an aircraft carrier, just metal. Rusting metal pipes. It doesn't look like an aircraft carrier. But inside a computer on the side of the room is a virtual reality program that has that completed carrier, that exists virtually. And there's engineers, naval architects. They have on big old, those goggles, virtual reality goggles, and they have on some gloves or manipulating. They're solving problems. Does this pipe go through this bulkhead, through this hatch? And can we close this hatch and make it watertight? Do we lessen the integrity of the hull if we add this there instead of there? In the galley, can we make those things, the plates, where you serve the food, where you keep the food for the buffet line? It's not really a buffet, it's more like a cafeteria, but it's cafeteria style. Okay, so you have your food in a place where it's visible to the customer, the person who wants to eat. Can we make that electronic or electric so we can make them cool, flip a switch, make it hot? Yeah, we can do that. They're solving problems, is what I'm getting at. Well, let's go back in time before those naval engineers, the architects, put together that ship inside the computer. Where did that come from? Came from an admiral, probably in the Navy, who provided a big giant book of specifications, requirements, if you will, to that shipbuilder. Mr. Newport News, here are what we want this carrier to be. Do they imagine it? Do they think it? Or do they use their imagination? They have all these tools in their minds and they imagine, how do we solve these problems? They go to work. Okay, before that book was created, somebody wrote the book. They probably did that based on a strategic plan. Senior leadership in the military looking out on the world saying, they're asking a question. What threats are we going to face in the next 10 years? Plus, we have an old carrier that's 40 years old and we're going to retire that carrier. We need a new carrier to replace it. And if we're going to get a new carrier, we might as well ask for a Cadillac and not a Yugo. You want something that's capable, that's going to last a long time, that's going to be at sea for 40 years. That 2-3 generations of American citizens are going to be aboard that ship. They're going to call it home. They're going to possibly fight off the deck of that carrier, fly into harm's way. But where does that come from? Why does the Navy do that? Well, because there are oversight committees in Congress, in the United States at least. The House Oversight Committee is the Armed Services Committee, and the Senate Armed Services Committee. Politicians are accountable to voters. Politicians go back to their districts. If you vote for me, I will make sure that America, our sea lanes are open and we will remain at peace. And our enemies will fear us and our friends will love us because we will protect our friends, and people who attack us or attack our friends will feel our wrath. That is traditional American foreign diplomacy. We do not mean anyone ill will. But if you push us into a corner, you may regret it. That's a politician's job. So people vote for politicians who they believe in. And those politicians go to Congress and vote for an aircraft carrier. They fund an aircraft carrier. Their Navy builds a manual of specifications, hands it to a shipbuilder. The shipbuilder hands it to the naval architects. They build it in a computer. They take it and give it to the machinists and the welders. And they start fabricating and constructing and building a warship, an aircraft carrier. It takes shape. And soon it's in dry dock and painted. Pretty catapults are installed. Resting wires are installed. It's floated. Some lady gets up and cracks a champagne bottle on it. And then a tug takes it out. Then she goes sea trials. So now you're back to the carrier at sea. It's deck full of airplanes. It's launching aircraft. It's recovering aircraft off the fantail. Pilots catching the third wire. I think of Top Gun. Early in the morning, the steam's rising off the catapult in the morning. You're never going to see that again with the Ford class because they're electromagnetic. So that steam picture in Top Gun is going to be a thing of the past in another 50 years. No carriers will exist that have steam catapults. It'll be a thing of the past. That is a practical exercise of imagination. Now, I've assisted you with this exercise by showing you some images to maybe facilitate thinking about it. But if you think about those things, it's something in reality is what I want to get to. Something that's real, that was created out of nothing. What you're doing there is you're exercising your imagination. You're looking at something from a different perspective. You're evaluating and you're asking those fundamental questions. Where did that come from? Where did the chair come from? Who invented the chair? Was it invented by some guy sitting around a fire at night, sitting on a cold rock? It was, just think about it. Off the wall thought, okay? There's some guy in a Shawnee Indian camp in Kentucky. Happy hunting ground, I think is the translation literally in Cherokee. But let's say it's a Shawnee Indian out hunting with his buddies on a hunting party, trying to catch deer and take them back to the teepee. There's another who invented the teepee. Why did all Native Americans have teepees? It's an ingenious thing. It's a great thing. It's mobile. Put it up quickly, put animal hides, keep the wind off you, keep the rain off you, put a fire in it, keep you warm in the winter. Great. What about the chair? So we're on a war party. We're sitting around a fire. We're talking BS with the other guys. And we're sitting on cold rocks. You know what? It would be a lot easier if we had something to sit on that was portable, that we could take, that's like portable like our teepees. And all we need is like 3 legs. We don't need, anything else. Just take 3 legs like we do in the teepee, but just turn it upside down. And we'll put a piece of wood on top. And we have a stool to sit at the fire and roast rabbit. Not marshmallows, not s'mores, rabbit. Or squirrel. You ever had squirrel? Tip of the day, when you're served squirrel meatloaf by your aunt, make sure that she removed all of the shotgun pellets from the meatloaf. Word of the wise, here's another tip. You can take a magnet on your squirrel meat while it's raw before it's cooked, and take your magnet and run it through the meat, and it will pick out those metal things for you, and you can discard them. It's really unpleasant to eat meatloaf and then go, just saying. Okay, a little bit off the wall there. But I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying, is that the benefits that you realize in your life by exercising your imagination really is overall sagaciousness. You will have better wisdom. You will have better thoughts. You will have better outcomes. And you will be able to solve problems. You will be an entrepreneur. You will be able to think about, what do people need? Fill that niche. Fill it. If people need X and I build X, then I can provide something good for society, something that people want, and they will reward me with money. And I will do good. And I think that's really good. And I hope that the little exercise in imagination tonight And talking and thinking about this kind of helps you understand the secret of power of positive thinking is more than just concentrating on something and thinking it will magically appear. It requires alignment of what's up here and what's in here, what's here. If the human mind can imagine it, the human hand can build it. Remember that. Have a great day. See ya.